my Discord's going too for whatever reason. All right, so today on the agenda, we're going to be talking about Axios, components, event listeners, console logging, and stuff from day one or earlier. So luckily, most of this stuff I can actually put into a pretty quick tutorial. Event listeners is a little more complex, but it's not too bad. So I'm going to try to do this using Parcel, which I just got working. So when we're dealing with Axios, you need to have that in your dependencies. So like right now I have like Parcel in my dependencies, and I actually want to have Axios in there. So we're going to do Npm Install Axios. And you should notice that it shows up here in your dependencies list. So what that's going to allow us to do is to import our Axios. So I'm going to go do npm start, and npm run start and npm start are identical to each other. And we'll get this thing going right quick and refresh, make sure it's running. That's good. So as usual, I always do Rick and Morty because it's easy enough for me to do. It's also a really awesome API, and I like Rick and Morty. Capitalize Morty. So by me changing my title, it shows up here and at the top of the tab. All right, anybody have any questions, anything that you want me to cover directly? I know I've got a lot of people out there. You can just come off of mute if you've got a comment or question. Okay, it looks like nobody's yet. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry. So my main kind of confusion is after you create, well, it's specifically with Axios, after you kind of make your whole constructor function with like your, your create elements and all of that, passing the Axios, Axios get and everything through another function has just been trying to scale it. It's been really hard for me to visualize or grasp.
Sure. What I can do is kind of show you that almost everything is going to live in that then, especially in this class, because we don't have any way of managing state. So state is something that we're going to cover next week, and so it's kind of out of scope for this. So making a larger application using vanilla.js is kind of, well, it's not stupid. That's what I do at work all day, but it's more difficult than it looks. And maybe if you wanted to try doing it like after you've gone through a little bit of React, like at the end of this unit, like say you've got your sprint done and you want to try to do it, you can always just say, hey, Brian, how would I do that state thing with vanilla JavaScript? And I can go through about 800 lines of code that will help you do that. And it requires a lot of thought and a little bit of asynchronous programming, and it requires a lot of thought is the biggest problem. So for the scope of this, I really don't get too deep into that, but anything that you want to have happen inside of that, instead of you trying to store the information, you just directly access it from res data. You don't try to store it outside of the .then. Just weird things start happening until you can start writing like async awaits and promises and things like that. It just really goes downhill really fast.
Yeah, it's kind of like what's tripping me up with this the homework tonight. That was I understand that you place it kind of in the then statement, and you have to console log your the rest or response is your
Mhm.
parameter, and then data is,
It's just another object
yeah,
underneath there. Yeah.
yeah, and you kind of just peel away the onion to kind of figure out what you're looking for.
Yep.
Whether it's the username in this case or a name or for
Yeah.
the today's assignment, but getting it to pass through for each or a for loop, and
Oh yeah.
it's
We'll be covering that.
okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So we're going to be doing the Rick and Morty API, which is rickandmortyapi.com. It's one of the better documented APIs. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be dealing with the characters information. So currently there's 826 characters. So the chances of me having a bad time with this data set is really low. Then they have, your character schema. It tells you what type of information is in here. Just like when you looked at the what do you call it? The API from today. So I'm more interested in this get single character for right now. That way we can kind of see what type of information is coming in. And then I'm going to go to the get all characters, which will allow us to loop over it if that works for you. Yeah.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. So I have an index.js file. I'm not going to be doing any CSS just because it's not really worth it. So I'm just going to do a console log and just verify that this is connected. So yes, it's connected, right? So there isn't anything connected to this. So there's no console or anything. And way back in the day, 3,000 years ago, what we had was a script tag at the bottom of the body. And this is really ugly. It's also really hard to follow. But what you would get is index.js. And if I save this, we should say, yes, it's connected. So you can also put this up into your header up here, and it will still be connected, but it's not going to be able to see any of these elements. So it won't be able to see body, header, UL, LI. None of this stuff is going to be available to it until we do a defer. So if you have one where it says, hey, I don't know how to select header, make sure you have this defer in there. So now that we have that connected, it still says, yes, it's connected. So what we also need to do is we're going to need to import let me see if this actually supports a, yeah, looks like it supports an import, so that's good. I haven't tried this with the latest version of Parcel. Yeah, see, it doesn't like, browser scripts cannot have imports or exports, so I've got to do it the old-fashioned way. This is the way you would do it in React. So we have to do like that. So we're going to make a new variable and set it equal to Axios. No, we're not. Let me see here. Let me look that up one second here. Trying to do this off the cuff, and the world always ends when I try to do that. So let's see here. Usually have some lovely, yeah. So we want Axios dot default is what they want. Let's see if that explodes. It doesn't like that. R-E-Q-U-I-R-E. Yeah. Well, I'm just gonna copy this because obviously I've got something wrong with how I typed it or something. I don't know. Huh, I've broken it. All right, so since, oh, we're not. Let me see, scroll down. Oh, it's totally broken. So since I can't seem to get this going, what I'm going to do is I'm going to comment this out, and I'm going to use the backup method, which is the CDN here, since I don't really have time to troubleshoot that. And this is also valid for you guys if you run into a problem where it doesn't want to import or allow you to do the require. You can always just put the script in here, and then you don't need to require it. It's already there because it was already in the page, but it has to be above your script. So if I save that, that works, and it's not erroring out. So let's see if this will. It's a little bit bigger. All right. So if I wanted to go into the documentation and we want to get a single character, we're going to get Morty here. So I'm just going to copy this HTTPS rickandmorty api.com/API/character/2. And I can actually just paste this into a web browser, and a web browser is just a GET request. Now I've got something that converts this from a big wall of text to something that you can actually see. Yeah, it's even got an image. Here's Morty right there. And it's this JSON view, JSON-VUE, that does that conversion for me. So it's kind of nice to have a little browser extension. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to do an axios.get. Seeing this things did that auto import thing, which throws everybody. I gotta make it so it stops doing that. And we're just going to put in Rick and Morty API character 2. And if I go in and I do a .then, I pass in a callback, and we make this request or result. So what result is going to do is it's going to tell us what came back from that call. So if I just console log the result, and you can even spell this out if you want. So we have a new variable named result that was passed in from the .then from axios.get. And so this contains data. It's just sitting out there as like a big post-it note in the sky. So if I save this and I go back to here, and of course it's not working. Let me refresh. There we go. So if I look at this, you can see that we've got an object that came back because it's got a curly bracket. There we go. That's better. So this curly bracket here says that we're in an object, and inside of there we've got key value, key value, key value, key value. It says a status code. It says config, data, headers. I mean, all this stuff is just, most of this is like useless for a developer. I mean, it's kind of nice to know, but the thing that contains the information that we want is in this data field. So this is already coming back with the data only. So we want result.data immediately. So we're going to do, so if I do console log result.data and save it, and it looks like this is exploded, but that's okay. So we've got result.data now has all of this information that we want in here. So from here, you know what type of information you're getting in. And we're just doing a console log so we have easy access to it. And if I wanted to do something with this, we might make a function and say so something like character card, right? And we're probably going to want to pass in an object. So we're just going to console guess I can type today. Please. We're going to console log this object. So I can get the right key. What we can do is we can actually just call our character card here. And then pass in result.data. Because result.data is the object that we're really wanting to pass into character card. And then, you know, I can this is Sparta. And if I refresh again, you can see it returned this is Sparta. It didn't return a DOM element or anything. It just returned a string. So we're console logging whatever came back from with this call, but right above it, we're just console logging result data, which then turns into a variable named object. So we're just console logging the object variable. So this is the object variable. And it's the exact same thing as what you would get with res.data. So this is how you would take data out of this .then. So you'd actually have to invoke, you'd have to invoke a function and then pass data over to it from this .then. Does that make sense?
I'm kind of confused with it. So we're, again, you have the character card, you're passing it through the then statement with the console log.
No,
Why?
I'm just invoking it here. Like I don't even have to console log this. I could just invoke it straight up like that. And so this data is now being called object inside of character card. So this is the new variable name. It's just as if I did like that, right? It's the exact same thing as that, except it has whatever result.data is in it. Oops, can I get rid of that?
So, I mean, regardless, the reason why it's returning this as Sparta is because we just are choosing not to do anything with the object that's being passed through.
This is just, I could return a number. I could return an object that says Brian is a person. You know, I could do whatever I want. I could return an array. I could return a DOM element. So like if I wanted to say do and then have this as say an article for an example, right? Then I could return card like that.
But, yeah.
So this I'm just saying that, you know, the return statement, this wasn't saying, hey, this is how you do this. This is more like it's just a regular return statement, just like you did in unit 1. There's nothing, there's absolutely nothing special about this return statement.
Okay.
It's not a new level. It's not anything. You could return anything you want. Doesn't mean that it makes sense to do it. It just means, hey, I'm trying to see what data is going into this, and I'm trying to see what data is coming out of it.
Okay.
So like if I go back here and I console log character card, you can see that it returns an article. And it still isn't in the DOM. So like I can go into here to elements and it's nowhere in here because I don't have a query selector. So if I do say I need to do document, please. That is not what I wanted. And then I did say the element called body. It'll grab the first element called body and assign it to body, right? So I could actually console log that. I can do this. And you'll see on line, whatever this is on this. Let me refresh. We've got body, and it's a bunch of stuff. If I refresh again, it'll eventually pick up the body. Okay, it's being weird, but that's what happens when stuff comes back faster than you were expecting. Let me see if I can move that down, see if that's gonna slow it down a little bit. There we go. Now we've got body. So you got body, header, UL, LI, like that. And JavaScript doesn't work the way that you think it does. It doesn't really work anything in order, especially when you're in the DOM. So when it doesn't come up with what you're expecting like this, like before it was like giving me an object, it's just, I have a very fast computer and it's outrunning this. So it's kind of like, this console log was in a car driving to New York from LA, and this was in an airplane. So this, the console log was in the airplane, this was in a car. And so it wasn't quite done selecting the body and creating the node before it outputted it. So once when I put it after Axios, it started processing Axios before it started getting to console log. So it's still going to have some problems, but that's just weird stuff that you run into when you have a faster-ish computer. But if I went to my my laptop, and the laptop's like 10 years old, it works exactly the way I want it to, but I just can't. I can't run Zoom at the same time as this. It's just a little old. So what we're doing is we've got this this character card here, and it's just returning card, right? Which is a new article. If I wanted to, instead of console logging this, if I wanted to do, like, say, body.append child, like that, and I save it. Let's see, I'll probably have to refresh this a few times. Yeah, missed it. There we go. So now we've got header and then an article in here. There's nothing in there, so it doesn't render anything. So if I wanted to, for an example, I could do, card dot text content equals, and we could put in, sorry, I'm doing that as a string. Object.name, something like that. And I could save it and refresh, and we would get Morty Smith from the data. So this object here, you can go and look inside of here, and you would see that you have the object.name here is Morty Smith. Or you could do, species. Right? And it says human. Make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
So now, what if we wanted to loop over this information? So on here, if we wanted to loop over the information, we need to take a look at the information that's coming in from character, because this is going to give us all of the characters, not all 826, just one page at a time. So this right here is res.data here. And then we need to do res.data.results. And then we need to be able to loop over it. Because if you notice, it's a square bracket. That's an array. So if I get rid of character 2, and instead we do data.results like this, we can do a for each. And the for each takes in a variable, and we would just, I don't know, I guess we'll just call this a person. So if I just console log person, you notice we're getting that console logging in as well. And I refresh, I'm sorry, got to go to the right page. And I refresh this, you notice that we get a whole bunch more console logs. So we've got our Rick Sanchez, ID2 is Morty Smith. And you can see that we're getting one at a time instead of this big array. We're going into it one at a time. So imagine if you could just send this one thing at a time over to our character card. So if we did, say, instead of console logging person, let's do body append child. We'll do character card. And we're going to send it in person. So this element here, it's one element of that array at a time. So, this first one is array 0. And then the second one is array 2, array 3, or array 2, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Just going through each one and sending it to the card and then appending it. So you're using the DOM to store this information. Let me save that. And we should have let's see. Did I see that? Character. Let me see here. There we go.
And person, that's just a parameter, right? That's not a
whatever I want to
value.
call it. I can call this Nana. And it'll still work the exact same way. This is just your name for it. Because you're not trying to access a piece of data. You're just trying to name what that object is going to be called, or whatever you're looping over. So all the for each is doing is it just loops over an array. And so like if I console log result.data, you'll notice that we've got result.data.results here. Because it's a square bracket, it's an array. And so this is banana, 0 is banana, 1 is banana, 2 is banana, 3 is banana, depending on where it's at in the loop. All it's doing is it's just iterating through these for you and calling this one object banana for that one loop between here and here, it does whatever you want to do to that.
Where's the data coming from? Because I didn't see it from the API, that data right before results.
The data before results?
Yes.
That's just res.data.
So this has nothing to do with like actually targeting the data from the API. It's
Yeah. So like if I got rid of this result, I can't loop
okay,
over.
I see it. I see
Yeah.
it. My bad. It's the parameter. I thought this was like a separate array or like maybe an object. Then you are targeting the results inside the data, but this is actually the parameter. Okay, see now.
Yeah. So this res.data.results is this array right here. So it says array of 20 items. So all we did was we just went down from result to data, and then we looped over the results. So like if I did res.data result like that, and I refresh, go back up to the top, you can see that it's just an array. So we're just tossing all the data out the window before that. So you got result.data.results.
Got it. Thank you.
Then let's see. Let's make this a little bit more interesting. And do say we'll do an H2. Right. And we'll do yeah, we'll do P. Or maybe we'll just say we'll call this description sounds good. Okay, so we'll just do like an H2, an image, and a P. And so what we can do is we can attach this to the card. So we could do card, no. And we'll do H1. Oh, sorry, H2, geez. Image and description. All right, so if I save this and refresh it, just save it, actually didn't do that. So we're gonna go to the elements, go to body. And if you notice, each one of these articles has an H2, an image, and a P tag. There's nothing in it, so it's not rendering anything. You can see it kind of has an outline that there is something there, but it's not very detailed. You wouldn't know that this is, this first one is Rick, the second one is Morty, I think the third one is Summer. You wouldn't know any of that. So what we might do is put the H2 as the person's name. So we could do, if we go back over to the console and we open up one of these, you can see that the name is Rick Sanchez. So what we would do is just do, say, H2 dot text content. And we're going to make this object, which is whatever we called it up here. We could even call that banana. We're not telling it what it is. We're just naming it something. So, if we wanted to call this, I don't know, we're just going to call it me. So So Brian.name, it doesn't make any sense for me to call it Brian, or even worse, we use props, which you guys will find out about next week. It's the same basic idea. Props is just an object anyway, so it's kind of the same basic idea. And now we've got a whole bunch of H2s in the elements here with names in them. So, each one of these has Morty Smith, Rick Sanchez, Summer Smith. And then, we could add in, say, props dot, let's forget what this one is. We'll just open one of these, image. And then on an image, you always want to have an alt tag. So props.name sounds good for that. If I refresh, now we've suddenly got something more interesting than text. And we can even do things with, say, the description. So description dot text content. We're gonna equal this to backticks, and you can use the curly bracket, $ curly bracket, and do say
when it comes to the Axios get, how do you, sorry, because I know you kind of touched on this already, but how do you know how to modify it with like a template literal?
Well, I'm not.
I kind of,
So like, you don't have to do a template literal. Like, let's say that you wanted to do, you could do plus and concatenate in like /2, and it would do Rick and Morty API character /2 by doing this. But if you did like a template literal around this instead, all it's doing is allowing you to do a $ curly brackets and then put in something else in here. Or a variable name, like, whatever, if you had a character number, right? So it's not like, there's like some big mystery. All it is that if you wanted to add in more stuff into that, the template literal or the string literal is gonna be easier to read than a whole bunch of pluses or whatever to concatenate a string. It's just a readability thing. But that's only when you're trying to do something where you're saying running a loop of Axios gets or something like that, which I don't think is going to be on the sprint.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to like kind of transpose it to what I'm understanding with this again, this assignment too. And
well, I know that it used to be stretch. I didn't really take a look at it this time around, but it used to be stretch where you would like go and loop over it to find, say, another, if you had, like a list of other people that are followers or following you, then you could loop over it. And all you would do is just, add your name to a list of people to loop over, and you would run the for loop with the Axios inside of the for loop and run it the exact same way that you normally would, where you're appending the child to wherever they tell you to append to have that card. So you're just looping over it and running an Axios call over and over and over and over.
okay.
And so you might have an Axios call that inside of that same then has a for loop or a for each loop that then has other Axios calls inside of it. So
I guess what I'm trying to, I'm having trouble visualizing it. I appreciate taking the time. Why?
I might be able to touch on that a little bit, but um, the problem is that once when you start trying to get data out of the then, you're running into asynchronous data and storing state. That's way out of scope and much more complicated than you think it's going to be, especially at this level. Like you're overcomplicating it 50 times. So if you're looping over something, you know, inside of this loop, you know, like let's say you had like banana.followers. Right? So what you could do is you could for each, which we don't have a followers. That should be an RS. You could for each this inside of whatever, you know, your get request is, and I don't know. I'd have to look up the project again, but the idea is that you would have, like, say, followers. That's my name for them. Oops, I missed that. And then, you know, you would have something like and axios.get, and then, you know, whatever the name of the HTTPS GitHub. I don't remember what the path was, but it's something like this. And then you would do $, curly bracket. And that should be singular. So follower. So now what this is going to do is it's going to loop over however many followers banana has, because followers is going to be an array. And each individual follower is just a string name for their username. And so if, yeah, I don't remember, maybe it was like api.github.com/ you know,
Yeah.
something like that. I don't remember exactly how it's structured. I think it might be actually be named / and then you would have the name of the follower. So all we're doing is we're changing out that information. So instead of me trying to move this, like, you know, out of all of this stuff down to the bottom and then trying to loop over it again, the problem is getting this banana outside of this .then is so difficult that it would take me way too long to explain it. Like, it might take me 4 or 5 hours to go through it.
Okay.
So don't try to separate this from, you know, wherever you're trying to do. So if you loop inside of the then, you won't have a problem. If you try to store that information outside, you're going to get promise pendings and all kinds of weird stuff, because JavaScript doesn't do things the way you think it does. It does things when it feels like doing it. So JavaScript is like one big race condition, and no other good way of putting it until we start learning a lot more things about you know, how things are run inside of that. And I would probably say you'll be a lot more comfortable with tackling that by unit 3 or unit 4, because there's a lot more of that kind of thought. But when we're dealing with, you know, just trying to grab information, I'm not big into trying to loop over followers or any of that kind of stuff. That's why I always say, you know, if it's stretched, then it's stretched. Just leave it be. If you don't get it, it's not a big deal.
It's not stretched, but
it's neat to have, and if you can get it, that's great. But at the same time, it's not like, you know, you're going to fail the unit if you don't understand it. It's more like hey, this is pretty neat. Let's see who can push themselves to get that. And a lot of the stretch goals are really difficult for that reason. This stretch goal is not difficult. It's just you have to do it inside of the then. You can't try to extract it from the then. And that's why I keep saying on, like, I think I've had 5 or 6 people in the help channel ask me about that. And I'm like, it's not going to be clean code. It's going to be ugly code. It's not going to work the way that you think it's going to.
I understand. It's just kind of confusing. I'm trying to get it because it doesn't seem to be the stretch. It seems to be the actual assignment.
Yeah. So all you would need to do is, if you know where, in your results, wherever your res.data is, if you can get to an array and loop over that array has strings in it. So if you can do a for each on that array, then all you need to do is inside of that Axios, do the exact same call to the exact same card and append it to the exact same place that they tell you to. So I think the cards class, if I remember right. I don't have the project open.
Understood. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so we now have text content, and we've got props name is a props.gender, and we can do another one in here, which is props dot what was it, species. And props dot stats, something like that. So if I refresh this, nope, I blew it up. Yeah, see it. Hush, alarm. That auto import did its thing when I was doing Axios. So, all right. So now we've got Rick Sanchez. Rick Sanchez is a male human who is undefined. So obviously I have something misspelled. Yeah, STATUS. So you'll see anytime you have something that isn't in the data set, you'll just see undefined. So if it's a blank or it's not in the data set, it'll say undefined. And one of these people is dead. Well, unknown. Adjudicator Rick is dead. So there are some dead people on the first page. So what this is doing is we're doing an Axios get. We're console logging out just, some information. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that console log since we're kind of wrapping up. This result data results is an array. Because results is an array, we can loop over it. When we make a for each function, a callback instead of that for each, this banana is our word. We can call it anything we want. If we wanted to, call it, person, we can call it person. So if I save this and refresh, we still have one more console log up here. But if you notice, anytime that I have any type of function that has a parameter, I'm console logging it. That way I can tell exactly what is going into this. Even if it gets annoying and starts throwing tons of console logs, you can always just comment it out or delete it. It looks like we've got the last one at the bottom, which is the body. So now when we refresh, nobody even knows that it's a JavaScript thing other than, yes, it's connected. As far as they're concerned, this has all been built out. So where is this strength in doing it this way? So there's different data that you can put into here. So like I can go to page 2. And you notice that we have a different data set. Without me rewriting any code, we now have a completely different page. So let's say that we have a let's say we do an event listener, right? Quick, just say a previous and a next button. So if I go back over here to this console log and I just look at res.data from this. So we're going to refresh, go to the console. You can tell that it's got this results thing, but it also has this neat little thing called info. And so it's got this next button here and a previous button here. And say like your pages is 42. So what we might do is make a function that holds this axios.get, and it allows us to pass information into this axios.get. So, and we'll say page generator, and then we're going to say URL. Oh, sorry, I'm losing my mind. We're just going to pass this whole Axios thing into here. So what I can do is I can kind of just cut this and type in URL. If I invoke this, I pass in, say, page 1. Let's see if this works. So, here. One second. Why isn't it like my .vin? Did it? No. Oh, I don't have that fat arrow. All right. Refresh. All right, so this is still working. And notice how I can do page generator, and I can pass in page 2, for example. If I refresh this, this is now giving us page 2. So if we look at this information here, we've got a next information and a previous information. It tells us how many pages there are and how many characters there are. So this gives us a chance to generate buttons at this point. So let's say that I wanted to make a menu. So we're going to do another. I'm going to move this up to the top. I'm going to make something called, constant navigation. And we're going to say, we're going to call this info because that's what this is. So nice and easy. So it's going to give us count, next, pages, and previous. So what we're going to do is we're going to console log info. And we're going to call navigation here. Sorry. Result.data.info is what we're passing in because we've got result.data.info here. So if I save this, and it doesn't explode. Let's hope. Now we have our info that's being logged. So let's do a const nav is going to be equal to a document dot, nope, create element. And we're going to make this a button. We're going to give this no, actually we're gonna make this a nav. We'll just call this nav, and we're gonna put this into the header. So so what this is going to do is this is going to make the header here, the header here, where we're going to have a nav underneath these ULs here. So we have selected it. And if I return this, and then we do a header dot append child, and then run navigation, whatever gets returned from navigation gets appended to header. I refresh, we open up header, we notice now we have a UL with all of these list items that we're doing, and nav, just like what we were doing before. Now let's do a little bit of logic on info. So if we go back to page 1 and I refresh, we look at the console and our info, notice how previous is equal to null. So what we can do is we can do some very simple if-else type stuff. So if, and we can just do previous. Then we'll just say there's a previous, and we can do if next. So if I refresh this, oh, sorry. Oh, yeah, we still need to do info.previous. Refresh. All right, so it says there's a next. So if we go to page 42, it's going to say there's a previous. So we'll go ahead and go to page 42 and refresh. So there's a previous page to this. Or if I just go to page 2, it's going to be both previous and next. There's a previous, there's a next. So we don't really need to have a button generated all the time, but we're going to do it anyway. But we probably want to make it so it's disabled. So what we could do is and we're going to do a button. And we can even do I save this and refresh. Now we have two buttons. They don't do anything because we still need text content. So we'll do screen. Any questions so far? Am I going too fast? Did I lose everybody? No response, always fun.
Okay.
Yeah, so far so good.
Okay, excellent. So now I have a button, previous page, next page. They don't do anything. They're fantastic, right? We don't have anything that's showing page number or anything else like that. We probably could, but it's not really worth it yet. Maybe we will if you guys want to push it that far. But we've got buttons, so that's pretty cool. So if there is not a previous, what we can do is we can do previous button disabled true. Now you always want to set your true and false values, because if this ever gets set to true, there's nothing there that's going to set it to false. And if this is false, there's never going to be anything to set it to true. So you always have to take care of both cases, and especially with a toggle like a disabled. And this is being disabled not by somebody clicking on it, but by there just not being something there. Same thing with your next button. So we can do next button dot disabled false else something like that. So if I save this, I refresh. Oh, I'm on page 2. Let me go back to page 1. I refresh this. Notice how the previous button is, you can't click on it. Same thing if we go to 42, which is the last page, you can't go to the next page. So the next page is done. So if we start on page 1, like that, next page still doesn't do anything because we haven't done any on clicks or anything like that. So yeah, we'll go ahead and put the event listeners here so it kind of makes some sense. So we're going to do a previous button dot add event listener, and this is going to be a click event. Like that. So what this is going to do is this is going to, when you click on it, it's going to run this function. So what we want to do is we want to run this page generator, right? So let's see if I can break this. And we're going to pass in our info.previous. So, and we probably want to put this in the if. So we're going to move this into the if like that. So if info.previous is there, it's going to do previous button.add event listener, click, blah, 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 right? Let's see. I'm also running into one other issue where I think it's going to be actually adding in another menu and another page unless we remove stuff. So I'm going to look into that. Give me 1 second. My brain's kind of thinking of things 2 steps ahead. So this is going to assign a previous button. It's going to add an event listener. When you click on it, it's going to go through and do page generator again using this previous button, which will be HTTPS blah 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 page, whatever the page would be. There is no page 0, so it's just not gonna do it. And we're going to run into our first bugs here very fast. Not that today's been, oops, sorry. Today's been interesting for bugs on this project. Axios first, not working. All right, so if I click on next page, let's see if this explodes. So notice how it made another menu here. And if I scroll down, we now have page 2. So we've got a bug where we need to clear out our body and maybe not make a menu again, or maybe clear out our menu. So there's some really hacky ways of doing that. I'm going to use a hacky way. So the easiest way of doing it is that before you run page generator, you erase whatever information was on that page. So I'm sure you guys learned from the DOM exercises that if you do text content with something already, or inner HTML with anything that's already in there, it erases everything in there. So what we can do is we can do body dot inner HTML. And yes, I know I told you guys never to use inner HTML. It's inner HTML is a property, so. And we just set that like that. And we're also going to run into an interesting one here in a second. So we're going to do body inner HTML equals that. So this is going to erase your body and replace it with a string, basically. So let me see if this is going to work. So we're going to save this, and we still haven't done anything about the buttons. So if I do next page, we get a next page. Oops, it replaced body. I didn't want body. I wanted not the whole body to be replaced. I wanted only, oh, what do you call it? I wanted only the articles to be replaced. So we may have to do some restructuring on this. Let me give me 1 second here. If we look at elements, see how we have body and all elements? If I refresh, we don't have like any other section inside of here like main. So let me just cheat right quick, and we're going to put in a main in here. You guys didn't see me do that. Don't tell anybody. All right, so, and we're going to make it so the body is actually called main just to make it even more confusing. All right, now let me refresh. So if I go to next page, You see how it makes next and previous. I can go next page again. And now we have a third one. We have a fourth one, a fifth one. And I can actually click on this one over here and it goes back to, you know, all of these are just doing some really nasty stuff. So now what we might end up running into is, you know, let's get rid of this Axios components event listener console log stuff inside of here. And we could just do on navigation. Let's see. So we've got header. So we can turn header inner HTML. So let me see where I want to do that. Yeah. So we'll just do that here. So like that. So we're going to save that and refresh. We're going to make it appear that it's doing more work than it actually is. So if I go to next page and previous page, like that. So if I click this 42 times, eventually we'll get through this. Might take a little bit. Did I mention I have like 800 of these? Okay, we're starting to get into season 4 stuff, so getting there. Okay, so now we're at 42, and you can see next page, I can't go past page 42, but I can also go back to 41, or if I refresh, I can go back to page 1. Any questions? Comments, concerns?
No. I was initially thinking about like maybe add another event listener to, like, once you click that button to get rid of the event listener that you have in place. And but then it would like remove it for all the pages. This way, I think it's better.
It's probably better, but it's probably also like a gigantic memory leak. But I think I've got 32 gigs of RAM on this, so I'm good. But there's reasons why we do things in React instead of doing it in vanilla DOM or vanilla JS DOM, unless you're the job that I work at in the morning, which I do a lot of vanilla JS. But you would actually want to figure out which elements have event listeners, destroy the event listener, and then figure out a way of destructing it or removing it from that. And otherwise, this is just like a big memory leak, the way that I'm doing it. So this is why I was saying it's like a hacky way. And inner HTML is evil. It's a security risk. It's got all kinds of things. But this is more like just saying, hey, this is kind of a way of doing an event listener. So honestly, the 3 event listeners that you really need to know more than anything, at least for business side things, is your click event, your text update events. So like, what do you call it? On change is one of them. So on click, on change, and on submit are the 3 handlers that you really should be familiar with. And there's other ones, you know, mouse over and mouse up and mouse down for if you're dragging and dropping things, but that's pretty advanced. I'm not even entirely sure if I would want to try to dig into that too far, but you know, it's possible to do that in vanilla JS, and it's not anything super complicated. It's just tedious.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Well, yeah, as for doing 24 pieces of Flare, I mean, pieces of events, I'm not a huge fan of doing however many they make you guys do. I would be happy if they just taught you, 3 really well that you're going to be using literally next week. Okay, questions? I got Q&A time still. So like, I think I've got 30 minutes. I did this a little faster than I was expecting. So that means that I probably went through it a little too fast. There's bound to be multiple people in here that have questions. Should I stop recording then do asking questions? I'll do that. I'll stop recording so everybody's less shy. All right, stopping recording now.